guys, I'm Mary and welcome back to my channel. So at the end of last year, and I think it was December when I posted, I did an anticipated releases, or 22 anticipated new releases for 2022. And so that video was meant to encompass the entire year. Like, I didn't specifically do it just for the first half or anything, but in reality, most of those books were January through August, just because of kind of what was announced, what was on my radar. And so I think there was only one that was past that. So I thought, now that it's the middle of the year and we've had more book releases announced for the second half of the year, and a couple more who maybe had been announced but have now come on my radar more, I thought I would do a shorter sequel to that video with 10 new releases I'm looking forward to for the last half of the year, just as a little bit of a supplement to that video, I suppose. So first up on that list is Just Another Love Song by Kerry Winfrey, and this is coming out on August 2nd from Berkeley. So this is a second chance adult contemporary romance following a pair of high school sweethearts who at the end of high school they were going to leave their small town together, but the girl ended up having to stay for whatever reason, and the guy went off to make something of his music career. And it was now 15 years later. She's been home helping her family run their, I think they run an inn, or maybe a bed and breakfast, something like that. And her old flame, he comes back into town as a successful, famous country singer, and he has a kid with him. And so it's kind of their second chance kind of thrown together. I think they end up getting thrown together to plan something for the town or something along those lines. And yeah, I'm excited for this. This general plot outline, the high school sweethearts, one leaves to be a famous country singer, the other stays home to help their family's business, and then the country singer comes back, and they help plan something for the town. That whole plot structure is the same as a Hallmark Christmas movie I really like, called Christmas in the Smokies. It's the same outline, and I've seen that movie a lot, and I love it. So like, here for that in a different form. And then also, earlier this month, I read a pop star romance, and I realized I really like musician romances, so I've read two, and I really like both. So I'm kind of like in the mood to find more of those, so this one's hitting that desire right now pretty well. There's another one in this video that also is hitting on that desire. It's a little bit of a theme. Okay. Next is The Undertaking of Hart and Marske by Bannen, which comes out August 23rd from Orbit. So this is a adult fantasy book that seems like it takes place in kind of like a fantasy western setting, like like Wild West kind of setting. And we follow two characters, Hart, who is a marshal who patrols this west, where they are, and then Marske, who is an undertaker, and they hate each other and like don't get along, and then they end up somehow, not sure how this happens, guess we'll have to read and find out. At some point they start exchanging anonymous letters, pen pal style, to each other, and they like grow really close to these letters, not knowing who they're actually writing. So like, I'm really here for this. I adore this cover a lot, like so much, and it just sounds good. I'm excited for it. Next up is A Taste of Golden Iron by Alexandra Rowland. This comes out August 30th from Tor.com. I actually have an arc of this one, so I'm definitely excited to get to this one, probably in July. And this is about a prince of, I think it's an Ottoman Empire inspired world, and it follows this prince who ends up being put in charge of some kind of investigation into, I think, some kind of thievery that had happened in the palace, and he gets assigned a bodyguard, and as him and his bodyguard are kind of solving this mystery, they also, I believe, fall for each other. So fantasy with a heavy dose of romantic storyline, and I've heard good things so far from people who have arcs and have read them yet, so I'm looking forward to it. Next is The Genesis of Misery by Neon Yang, which comes out September 27th from Tor. So this one is mostly an author hook for me. I really liked Neon Yang's Tensorate series, which was a 4-book novella series, and so this is more sci-fi and that was fantasy, so I'm definitely intrigued, one, to see what they do with full-length novel and a genre bending, but I really like the Tensorate series, so definitely interested when I saw they had a new book coming out this year. And what I know about this is it's some kind of like space fantasy, like sci fantasy, about the main character has some kind of like powers that they hide or keep concealed, and at some point they get revealed, and so they get thrown into like the middle of some kind of like galactic war or something. Not entirely sure, but looking forward to it. Next is The Vicious Circle by Katherine St. John. This is just a mystery thriller book, and it comes out on September 27th from William Morrow. So this one is another author plug. First was an author plug, and then secondarily sounded good, and so I have read both of Katherine St. John's mysteries that she's put out, and I really loved her first book and liked her second book, so I was interested in her third book. I've been enjoying them. And then I read, finally, I think I put this on my TBR before they had a blurb. And then the blurb came out and I was like, ooh, this sounds really good. Because it takes place in this wellness center in like the jungles of Mexico that is home to this guru and his followers, so like a cult. It's home to a cult. And then the guru dies and leaves all of his possessions, including this wellness center, to his niece, who is not a part of the cult at all. She lives in like New York or something, or in America, and so she comes to this remote wellness center to kind of like see what she has inherited, and then like mystery thriller shenanigans go from there. And something about, I can't say I've read many cult books at all. Really, I can think of like one. But the idea of a cult mystery thriller appeals to me for some reason. So that blurb sounded good. Next is The Spare Man by Mary Robinette Kowal. This comes out October 11th by Tor. And so this is a standalone like sci-fi mystery, and we're following our main character who's on her honeymoon on a cruise liner, but a space cruise liner. And while they're on the honeymoon, someone dies and they arrest her husband thinking he did it, but she doesn't think he did it, so she starts investigating to clear his name. And honestly, this sounds great. I love this, like, the cover is giving me great vibes, and just the murder mystery in space, just as a concept, appeals to me. So I'm here for this. Next up is A Restless Truth by Freya, Marske, which comes out November 1st from Tor.com. This is the sequel to A Marvelous Light, which came out at the end of last year, that I really enjoyed. So I'm excited just because I like the first one, so I'm excited to pick up the second one. And then after initial excitement, I read the blurb and got more excited. So this one follows the sister of one of the main characters from the first book, and she boards a boat heading from England to America, and while she's on the ship, murder happens. There's a theme. There's a theme here. And while she's trying to kind of investigate this murder, she ends up teaming up with this other stranger she meets on the boat. And so they team up and investigate this murder and uncover like a conspiracy. And honestly, it just sounds great. Like I really liked the kind of historical fantasy setting that we got in the first one. So excited for more of that. And it's on a boat. I love books that take place on boats, which I think also is some of the appeal for The Spare Man, because it's not a boat, it's a spaceship, but it's like a spaceship version of a boat. Like it's a cruise ship but in space. Like that hits the same itch as taking place on a boat for me, I think. Okay, next is A Very Merry Bromance by Lyssa K. Adams. This comes out on November 1st from Berkeley. This is another adult contemporary romance. So this is the 5th book in the Bromance Book Club series. And this series, none of these individual books are like 5-star favorites, but they're all just fun. Like they're solid, fun reads. It's one of those, I get exactly what I expect, and I have a good time with each book in the series, so I am excited for another one. And this one follows the country singer character from the Bromance Book Club. So here's the singer romance coming in again. And so he kind of has a thing with Gretchen, I think is the female main character's name, and so they kind of have a thing, and I think they break it off. I think that's how this is set up. That's what the back of the blurb I think is saying, is they had a fling and then broke off, but now she needs his help. She wants him to be the face of her family's whiskey brand, and he agrees to do it in exchange for 3 dates with her, because he wants to win her back. So I'm excited. Musician romance. Also, both of these musician romances are about country singers, which was not on purpose, but is very on brand for my own personal music taste. So not complaining, but an interesting coincidence. Next up is Heart of the Sun Warrior by Sue Lynn Tan. This comes out on November 10th from Harper Voyager. This is the second book in an adult fantasy series. I read the first one at the end of last year. I have a review for it, and I really enjoyed it. It's a retelling of Chinese mythology, which is something I knew very little about going into it, and so I really had a good time with the first one, and I am excited to just see where the second one goes. The first one didn't end in the place I kind of expected it to end, knowing the book was a duology, so I'm very intrigued as to where the story is going to go, because I'm not entirely sure, but definitely excited. And this series has just gorgeous covers. And then last up is Tread of Angels by Rebecca Roanhorse. This comes out on November 15th from Gallery Saga Press. And this is, I had no idea Rebecca Roanhorse had this random standalone coming out, because she's like in the middle of writing 2 series, and which part of me is like, girl, give me more Black Satin books. But she just gave me one, so It's cool. It's cool. But so, yeah, I just, like, happened to see this pass by on Goodreads one day. I was like, wait a second. So this is a standalone, at least according to Goodreads, it's a standalone fantasy that's kind of described as a dark fantasy noir. And it takes place in some kind of fantasy world where this one sister ends up being accused of some crime, and the other sister, who they kind of grew up apart in different classes of the city. And so the other sister ends up working as, like, the first sister's, like, fantasy lawyer in the, like, secretive courts of the elite, I think, of this city. So sounds pretty interesting. I'm definitely excited to give more Rebecca Roanhorse a try, because I really like her Black Sun series, but her Trail of Lightning series didn't quite appeal to me conceptually. It's a little, I'm not a huge urban fantasy person, especially our world urban fantasy is, I don't read it often, and so I wasn't super intrigued, but I wanted to read more by her, so I am definitely excited she has something else coming out to try. And then maybe one day I'll pick those up just because I like her enough, but conceptually they're just not pulling me in. So anyways, those are my 10 anticipated releases for the second half of the year. If you are excited about any of these, let me know in the comments, or let me know if there's any coming out the second half of the year that I haven't mentioned, and I will see you in my next video.